Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, let's watch. Audio is working.
We've all seen the headline.
There it is. So I took a few days off from videos. I don't usually do that, and it feels weird. And of course, the first video I put up in a few days, it didn't have audio. And so hopefully, reacting to this again, I can give better input. But I also feel like I'm just going to second guess myself even more. When it comes to videos like this, these are really interesting. I did a preemptive like, subscribe, USA versus Europe, how American police compare to the police in Europe. But I really want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. I'm going to say my thoughts, but the problem with me in talking about stuff like this is that the population that European and American cops encounter are the likeliness of them having a life-threatening a gun is very different. And so any difference in European and American cop tactics, I usually refer to that as the probable cause of that difference. But that doesn't mean that the USA can't learn from European tactics and still be safe. That's my opinion. I think you can be cordial and be human to human and also be armed. And I think American cops tend to be, and they have a difficult job. I'm not a cop, a police officer. But that's where I go, usually, is that the populations and the threat that the people they encounter could have is higher than in Europe. I'm not saying Europe doesn't have guns, but that's usually where my mind goes to. And so
The viral videos, the heated debates. American police, a force of good or a force of fear? As we delve deeper into the world of law enforcement, we'll uncover surprising differences between the US and Europe that might just change your perspective. Militarization, a unique American phenomenon. One of the most striking differences between American and European police forces is the level of militarization. In the U.S., many police departments, even in smaller towns, have access to military-grade equipment like armored vehicles, assault rifles, and drones, largely due to federal grants and a post-9/11 security mindset. This militarization has sparked concerns about excessive force and damaged relations between police and communities, particularly in marginalized areas. In contrast, European police forces generally adopt a more restrained approach. While some countries like France or Spain have specialized counterterrorism units, most European officers are equipped with less aggressive tools and focus on de-escalation, community policing, and non-lethal tactics. Training duration, a marathon.
Okay, so the American mindset, or the European mindset of, like, de-escalation, trying to get along with another human that you're interacting with in your job, and if you have to go to more forceful tactics, you have the ability to do so. Whereas America is just, the forceful tactic is often the initial interaction or the very next to initial interaction. It's more, okay, I'm being called to this crime or this incident. Suppress, arrest, ask questions. Whereas Europe is more go, assess, ask questions. If it's needed, direct action. That's the main difference I see in American and European police in that aspect. I hope that makes sense. You know, I was hoping that since it's my second time around watching this video, for anyone that didn't see my initial upload, the audio wasn't working, and so I watched this 2 days ago. I was hoping I'd have better comments, but I feel like I'm almost having worse ones. Training duration, again, this map, 500 hours, or it says 672 hours here, right? And then you have Europe. It seems like Bangladesh here and Malaysia have 1,000 hours, which is still double the American requirement. And then you go to Europe, which is what the video is about, and the lowest requirement in Europe is 4 times the requirement in the USA. And that's not something that I can blame on guns or anything like that. Why is that the case? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if you were a bit lower, it'd be understandable and I'd be more open to reasons, but 4 times less as the minimum, I can't explain it. I don't know.
Marathon versus a sprint. One of the most striking differences between U.S. and European police forces is the length and depth of police training. In the United States, becoming a police officer often involves anywhere between 18 to 30 weeks of training at a police academy. This training is largely focused on physical fitness, firearms proficiency, and basic law enforcement tactics. While it's intense, it pales in comparison to the training that officers in many European countries undergo. In Europe, police officers typically train for much longer periods, often between 2 and 3 years before they're fully ready to hit the streets. For example, in Germany, police recruits undergo approximately 3 years of rigorous training, which includes everything from law to psychology and conflict de-escalation techniques.
Question, guys.
Similarly, in
Do you get, I don't even know this for the USA either, for the something to 30 weeks. So you leave high school, you want to become a cop, a police officer. Do you get paid for those 2 to 3 years while you're in training? Or is it essentially like you're going to college, but for a profession you already know you're getting? If anyone knows that, I'd love to
the UK, police officers typically complete a 2-year probationary period, which includes comprehensive classroom instruction, on-the-job training, and ongoing assessments. This longer, more intensive training in Europe ensures that officers are better equipped to handle the complex nature of law enforcement, especially when it comes to understanding legal frameworks, dealing with mental health issues, and managing high-stress situations without the immediate use of force. Police accountability, transparency, and oversight. Police accountability is a hot topic in both the U.S. and Europe, but the systems for ensuring it are quite different. In the U.S., there are often calls for police reform and greater oversight, especially following controversial incidents of police misconduct. While there are mechanisms for accountability, such as body cameras, civilian oversight boards, and internal investigations,
body cameras I think are fantastic. And I think it helps both the police and the people encountering the police who have a problem with the police. Because it just shows it. It shows information that can be bad for the person being arrested or the person arresting. I think every cop having I use cop, police officer, whatever, interchangeably. You guys know what cop means, obviously. I don't know why I'm explaining myself. But police body cameras, I think, are a great plus all around.
The process is often seen as opaque and lacking in consistent results. In Europe, however, many countries have more robust oversight systems in place, particularly when it comes to police conduct. For example, in the UK, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, is an independent body that investigates complaints against the police and ensures transparency in the system. In Norway, public trust in law enforcement is bolstered by independent review processes that allow citizens to file complaints and hold officers accountable for misconduct. Moreover, in countries like Sweden and the Netherlands, police misconduct is treated with the utmost seriousness, and officers found guilty of abuse or corruption are often swiftly held accountable through internal or external investigations, ensuring greater public trust in the police force.
I asked this in the original one. So who conducts those investigations? If anyone knows, I think that's a great idea, but is it the police department? Is it like a group of people like you would assign a jury? Is it politicians? Who does that exactly?
The role of technology, surveillance versus privacy.
Of course, it's a great idea. I hope you're not getting that feeling from me that I don't think it's a great idea. It definitely is.
In recent years, both U.S. and European police forces have begun utilizing advanced technology to aid in law enforcement. However, there's a stark difference in how technology is used and regulated. In the U.S., surveillance tools such as facial recognition technology, drones, and predictive policing algorithms are being employed by law enforcement agencies, sometimes with little regulation or oversight. This has raised concerns about privacy rights, particularly in light of incidents where these technologies have been used disproportionately against minority communities. On the other hand, in Europe, the use of surveillance technology is subject to strict data protection laws, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. European countries are much more cautious about the collection and use of personal data, and any surveillance activities are heavily scrutinized for their legality and necessity.
That's so ironic because I feel like the USA would be
The European Union has set high standards for police use of technology, often prioritizing individual privacy and freedoms over the unchecked expansion of surveillance tools. Policing and mental health. A major difference in approach. Policing in the U.S. often places a heavy burden on officers to handle a wide range of situations, including mental health crises. Unfortunately, the lack of proper training or resources can result in tragic outcomes, with police responding to mental health-related incidents with force instead of care.
See, how would who else would do this? This is not me trying to make a point, serious question. So if you were to have mental health professionals deal with some people instead of the police directly, how do you protect the mental health professional? Do you give them a gun? Do you have a policeman accompany them? Well, then you still essentially have a police officer who is capable of killing this person who's experiencing a mental health episode and shouldn't be dealt with as a normal person. On one side, I think people encountering a mental health crisis need to be dealt with differently than other people. But on the other hand, how do you safely interact with that person? You know, guys?
In the U.S., over 1 in 5 fatal police shootings involve individuals with mental health issues.
Yeah.
In Europe, however, mental health training is often integrated into police education from the outset. Countries like Finland and the Netherlands have implemented specialized training and units to deal with mental health emergencies in a way that emphasizes.
So you have people, if there's someone with a really big mental health issue, you have people who have much more training and specifically mental health, but also have law enforcement capabilities to go interact with that individual.
Care and understanding rather than punitive measures.
Okay, all right.
In Finland, for example, officers are trained to recognize signs of mental distress and are equipped to handle situations calmly and effectively, often working in tandem with healthcare professionals to avoid violent escalation. Moreover, several European countries have separate mental health response teams that operate alongside the police, ensuring that individuals experiencing a crisis receive the appropriate care.
Awesome. That's the best thing I've heard throughout the video. I think it's awesome.
Ensuring that individuals experiencing a crisis receive the appropriate care rather than being incarcerated or subjected to force. Civilian oversight, a patchwork system in the U.S. Civilian oversight of police is a crucial check on power, but its implementation varies widely across the U.S. Some states have robust civilian review boards with investigative and disciplinary authority, while others rely on internal affairs units within police departments. This patchwork system can lead.
I wouldn't want it within a police department because then you have ulterior motives to sway an investigation a certain way.
The inconsistencies within police departments.
I want anyone who's conducting an investigation to be completely removed from the police command structure.
This patchwork system can lead to inconsistencies in accountability. In Europe, civilian oversight is often more centralized and standardized. Independent police complaints, commissions, or inspectorates have the power to investigate misconduct, recommend disciplinary action, and even refer cases to prosecutors. Policing culture, community versus authority. Another key difference between U.S. and European police forces is their overall relationship with the public. In the U.S., policing often has an authoritarian undertone. The term us versus them is a common sentiment, where officers view themselves as protectors of the public, often positioning themselves above the citizens they serve. This mentality can sometimes lead to a more confrontational approach in
Yeah, I feel like this is something that I sort of talked about way earlier, in that you're a citizen with a job dealing with another citizen. You have a giant responsibility as the cop, as a citizen, as a cop, but you're not a soldier dealing with some. I don't want to get into that, but I don't like the. I'm just. I think both police and people dealing with the police need to realize that you are an individual dealing with another individual. You are not some all-powerful thing that needs to demand some respect from the cop or the person being pulled over or interrogated or whatever.
Actions with the public. In contrast, European policing tends to have a more community-oriented approach. The philosophy of policing by consent is central to many European nations, particularly in the UK. British police, for example, pride themselves on not carrying firearms and often emphasize their role as part of the community, not separate from it. The idea is to build trust with citizens through transparency, respect, and communication. This approach fosters a sense of collaboration, where police officers are seen as problem solvers rather than enforcers of law and order. The difference in police culture often extends to how police officers engage with protests, public gatherings, and civil disobedience. In the U.S., large-scale protests have sometimes led to violent clashes with law enforcement, with police using riot gear, tear gas, and rubber bullets to disperse crowds. On the other hand, European police forces are more likely to use dialogue, negotiation, and a gradual response to maintain order in similar situations. In countries like the Netherlands and Spain, for example, public protests are often managed by officers who engage in conversation with protest leaders to prevent violence before it escalates. Public perception and trust. Finally, the public perception of the police is shaped by the differences in their training.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to protests, that's something that needs to be known by both the citizenry and the police officer. That the police need to know that this is something that the country allows to happen and is crucial to a democracy, protesting. And protesters need to know that there are limitations to how you can protest. And so it's a bit more complicated there,
tactics and oversight. In the U.S.,
again, if you disagree with anything I say, let me know in the comments.
Shaped by the differences in their training, tactics, and oversight. In the U.S., trust in police is a complex and often contentious issue. Incidents of police violence, particularly against Black Americans, have eroded public confidence in law enforcement, especially in communities of color. Movements like Black Lives Matter have highlighted the need for police reform, including changes to how officers are trained, how they interact with the public, and how accountability is handled. However, some communities in the U.S. still have a high level of trust in their local police, and efforts to improve police-community relations continue across the country. In Europe, public trust in police tends to be higher on average. While there are certainly instances of unrest or dissatisfaction with law enforcement, particularly in countries like France and Spain, where protests against police violence have occurred, the overall perception of police is generally more positive. This is largely due to the emphasis on community engagement, lower levels of militarization, and more robust accountability mechanisms. However, European police are not without their own challenges, particularly when it comes to issues like immigration, police brutality, and protests. While both American and European police forces aim to maintain public safety, their approaches to policing, use of force, community engagement, and accountability differ significantly. American police forces tend to be more heavily armed, more focused on immediate law enforcement, and face greater challenges related to accountability. European police forces, on the other hand, often have longer training periods, emphasize community engagement and de-escalation, and generally have stronger oversight mechanisms. Understanding these differences is crucial not only for comparing policing strategies, but also for ongoing discussions about the future of law enforcement in both regions. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content.
So,
often working.
I think I gave most of my thoughts throughout the video, so I don't have much more to say. It was a great video. And anything I said guys, I always want to make sure to say this, that you disagree with or you think was dumb for me to say, call me out in the comments. Always do that. I want that to happen. That's not just something that I want to hear your opinion and how you think about my thoughts. That's kind of the whole point of all this, is for me to learn and to learn from you guys. When it comes to American police carrying guns, of course, I'm not going to ask an American policeman to not have a gun when they're going into a population that is so likely to have a gun themselves. I can't ask that. But when it comes to stuff like the amount of training hours is the most insane thing that I have well, maybe this, well, maybe that. I don't understand. Why don't American cops get more training? Especially because of the more danger that is presented to American cops by American citizens because of their greater likeliness to have a gun compared to European countries. That should mean more training. And yet we have a quarter of the training? I don't understand that at all. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. I love y'all. I hope you're all doing well. If you disagree with me, let me know. And I hope I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Hopefully the audio worked this time. Bye, guys.